Welcome, everybody, back to episode 2 of the Huskies Hockey Podcast. Here it's Weldie sitting with Andrew in our own little corners of the United States, so to speak. How you going? How are things going?
Things are going pretty good.
So you had a little bit of a weekend trip down in Vegas. How was that? Did you run the tables?
It was nice. Yeah, I did fairly well at blackjack. And I won some money based on the misery of Minnesota sports. You can put two and two together there. I did just bet money on the Cleveland Browns. I mean, the Vikings have their misery enough, but not even really. They've got much more of a positive history than the Browns do. But I still won.
Hey, you still won. Well, you know Minnesota sports. What can you say? And, with that, I just watch the Red Zone channel now. So that's pretty much all I do. I have got YouTube TV. I just paid the extra whatever a month for the Red Zone channel. And they just never cut to that game at all. So I was like, wow, it must be a really low scoring. And it's just one of those times. It's like, God, I'm so happy I didn't sit and watch that. From everything I've read and seen, it just looked like a painful game to watch. So
yeah, I really just sorry. I haven't watched a full Vikings game in 7 years. It's been a long time. I listen to K-Fan though, and it sounds like this season's going to be a hot mess, which is some of my favorite seasons when it comes to Minnesota pro sports teams. You don't want to just have a 500 season. You want it to go really bad.
Go really good or really bad. Minnesota Wild purgatory, where all of it's just, pretty good, squeak into the playoffs, and then just, run into a team that's better. And then you just can't improve. Yeah,
so you like the biblically bad. I did enjoy the Twins season this year, too, for that reason. Yeah.
So you were correct on picking the Browns over the Vikings. Won a little money on that. And you were also correct in our last podcast talking about St. Thomas. So let's go ahead and just jump into a little bit of a recap. And you said that there was going to be one blowout and one tight game. And lo and behold, that's what we got.
I think we both kind of agreed on that. I'm not going to take sole credit on that. But I think your terminology is one boat race and one tighter one. And
yep.
I think 12-2. I think that qualifies as a boat race.
That's a boat race. That's a race of many a boat.
Should say it should have been 13-2. Didn't like that waved off goal. I don't know if you got a chance. I know that we texted about that. I don't know if you got a chance to see it.
We texted about that. I tweeted out the clip, and they actually said
the St. Cloud player was impeding the goalie's view of the puck while in the crease.
Yeah, and I'm willing to give them the benefit of the doubt that they meant that there's contact there. Even if if that's the rationale, it's bad enough. But now we can't screen the goalie.
And that's the thing that was really blowing my mind, is because he stuttered when he explained it. So he went from saying that there was contact to correcting himself by saying it was just the view of the puck. And it's like 90% of goal scores in hockey is because of a screened goalie.
Yeah, that was... I know we're going out of order here and we're getting our rants, front-loading the rant here, but even if...
Let's get them hooked. Let's get them hooked on the pod. This is what we do.
I mean, it's 10-goal win. Not terribly upset about this.
Yeah, but it's the complete principle.
The principle of it, and more so than whether or not you're waving the goal off. If you're waving the goal off and it was a 30-second review, even if you use that terrible rationale, I would be like, oh yeah, this streamlined review system working like a charm. No, instead it was longer, maybe the longest review I've ever seen, especially for one that, the game was 10-2 at the time. My God, let's get it going here.
Well, definitely was the longest review of the season. I can think of longer reviews.
It might be a tough number to beat. I'd hope.
Oh no,
I really hope. I hope there's nothing that long, that longer, a review.
Oh,
any
it's
longer.
NCHC refs, of course. Of course, they'll be a little bit longer somewhere around the line.
Yeah, I suppose. I was gonna have a Todd Anderson joke, but I don't think he's in the league anymore. I think he retired. But someone in the league is gonna be hold my beer.
Yeah, exactly. And again, they're gonna go frame by frame, minute detail by minute detail, and say, we need to wave off this goal because we don't want scoring in this league.
I didn't see anything that would have necessitated waving the goal off. I mean, he was at the top of the crease, and I'm sure his toe slipped into the crease at some point. And there might have been some incidental contact with the goaltender. Nothing that materially really affected the goalie from stopping the puck, and that's, I think, the important thing there.
Yeah, this being a thing, throughout the season, it's gonna be completely irritating, and you're gonna hear me rant about it over and over again. So great, get your popcorn ready.
Yeah, and they always, whenever there's every year there's a couple of rule changes that they announce, and they say we're cracking down on this and that, and we mentioned, I think the test podcast that they're claiming to crack down on face-off infractions. Generally, that seems to be the case for the first couple of months, maybe until Christmas, and then they generally kind of loosen it up after Christmas, but. Yeah, I would say, especially if they're trying to improve the review system, expect the most problems of adjusting to that, or just being more picky about things for that to be the first couple of months here.
Exactly.
Once we get into the bulk of the conference schedule, I hope that things are just a little bit more reasonable. But yeah,
I do have to say that I was in the suite for that game, right? So I was up with the Ritz. I was up rubbing elbows and pressing the cheeses and whatnot with the finer folk of the St. Cloud elite. But up there, they've got the feed, and then you can kind of cycle through different feeds. So they had the overhead feed, and they were going through that. Picture does look really nice, so they did upgrade some cameras, or it must have been something like that. So, I mean, you'll get a clearer picture, but it'll still be the judgment calls that are still going to be tick-tacky, as we go throughout the season. So,
is that a company perk, or did you shell out the money yourself?
Oh no, it's that was a company perk. They have.
I liked how you're kind of like, oh, how they have all the different review angles, camera angles. No, I have never been in one of the suites. I was always with the plebes.
Oh, you were down there with the unwashed down there in the regular seats. No changes to the sound system, so that's shocker there.
Nice.
So that's still the same, ears sore, but a little bit of updated music. So I was like, okay, this is a little bit different. I'm kind of digging it and whatnot. But it was weird because they had two concessions open on the new edition side. Far side, one concession was closed, and I've got my daughter with me who's 4, so I'm walking around, huge line because we go on her terms anyway. So of course during the intermission we wanted to go. So I'm like, okay, fine. Huge lines, as expected, whatever. Go around, go to the back. Only one concession stand open. So I'm like, all right, well, there's, might as well stay in this line. I've been in that line for probably about 10 to 15 minutes before I realized that was just the Domino's only line. And my daughter wanted a hot dog. So I'm like, all right, let's go to a different line. And so, but, little signs, little markers, would be a little bit helpful. But, whereas I do have company seats, in the suite, the company has to also pay for the food, and my company didn't. So it was just like a thing of nachos, and you don't get to order. You can only order like in bulk. So I'd have to have like 6 people also order hot dogs with me, and I already talked to my coworkers at work. Why would I want to talk to them during a hockey game? That sounds terrible.
Well, roughing it in the suite.
Mm-hmm. Indeed. So
How was the crowd?
I thought the crowd was good, and really a shout out to the student section. I thought they were magnificent, and they really came out in full force. One thing that kind of caught me by surprise was they had a little clip at the arena of, students, here's how to log into your activity. So apparently, back in my day, when you were a student, you just have your ID, you swipe it, you got in. So apparently there's a little more rigmarole to get signed up, to get a ticket to go in. And I think in the end that kind of hurts your experience probably a little bit. Not your experience, but your jumping more
accessibility.
Accessibility, exactly. Jumping more hoops through and whatnot. But they really turned out. I also went to the women's game against Lindenwood on Friday night. So I went there, with the whole family, whereas it was just me and my daughter that went to the St. Thomas game. And that was kind of we always have to do test runs because I've got a 4-year-old and I've got a set of twins. So everything is just, like, okay, how are we going to do this? We have to plan. We can't do anything spontaneous anymore. Everything has to be an ordeal. Everything has to be, okay, if we're doing this, we got to have these 5 things ready beforehand. What if this happens? Pack up the minivan and whatnot. So anyway, Clara's kind of running around and Will's kind of trying to keep up with Clara, and then the Huskies score and the horn goes off, and then Will just starts crying and bawling because it was just a loud noise. So it was an ordeal. It was an adventure. It was a lot of fun though. And it was $10 for an adult, and all the kids got in free. So it actually
nice.
Wasn't too bad. I think that'll be something maybe Claire and I'll just go to, just us two in the future, and then she has a little more freedom also to kind of run around. Whereas at the hockey game I want to kind of keep, or at the men's game I want to keep her a little bit more close. But I tweeted out a picture also, and of the student section, because right behind, where the section marker is, it had, Domino's Pizza, and it said the Dog Pound. So the Dog Pound is now sponsored by Domino's. And then also in the little section over there was, the Husky sports band playing. So,
really?
I tweeted that out, and I was like, this is interesting, because not only that, they spelled it D-O-G, not D-O-G-G, which, again, I've always noted as D-O-G-G for Dog Pound. But I was like, oh, it's sponsored now. So I put #spawn, #ad, for that. And the amount of people that I just got about if that band is there during the men's game. And I'm like, God, I was really surprised, because I was like, it never even crossed my mind that they would have a band for the administration. And then I also, God, the vitriol people have against a live band. I guess I don't really understand. I like having a band at college hockey games. It doesn't sound the best at the concrete cathedral. I mean, acoustically, it's, garbage. For, anything music related. Like for crowd noise, obviously it's great. But it was, I don't know, it was just kind of interesting. I kind of, people I guess are really stuck in their ways, and they really want to keep hearing Gary Glitter for, I don't know. Again, I'm a little more inclined for change. I think change is good overall. Change spices things up and whatnot. And, traditions sometimes deserve to die. But I don't know. I just thought it was interesting, of the vitriol people have against bands.
Yeah, I'm surprised, but I didn't know that there was an anti-band faction out there. And yeah, I wonder what the push, but why would there be an anti-band faction? It's not like there's not enough room for them. I mean, it's not like they're selling out, even when they were the number 1 seed those 2 years. And I just, from an atmosphere standpoint, the band can play the Gary Glitter song. Like I always think it adds something to the college sports atmosphere.
And I also like it when they have it like in the entryway too. I know they did that sometimes for big games too. Like even just in the entryway, they have just a couple people in the band and whatnot. But anyway, so that was my experience. So we talked about, let's talk about, I guess, the full game. First game Friday for St. Thomas against St. Thomas. It was seeing the lineup sheet. Obviously, Easton Brodzinski getting the fourth line. We were again texting back and forth, and we kind of thought it'd be limited, just kind of test the waters to see how it would go. He came out of the gate. I mean, coming back from a broken femur in multiple spots to putting up a multi-goal, multi-point game. I mean, I was just blown away by just his play in general and his tenacity. So a lot of penalty trouble. St. Thomas couldn't really keep up.
Yeah.
And a little bit not used probably to the quote unquote new rules or something along those lines. But, we were able to put the pucks on, in the net on the power play. And I was just also blown away by like St. Thomas, you got to do something different. And every penalty kill, they were in just the same passive box formation. And it's like, that's not going to work against this team. We are going to eat it alive. And just his Blasie's refusal to, hey, let's try to be more aggressive this time and see what happens was just kind of interesting. So anyway, that was a little bit of my on my take. Only 2 Huskies didn't register a point for skaters, Michael Milla and Joel Molinar. So I mean, it was a party all around. So
agreed.
Welcome to Division 1, St. Thomas.
Yeah. I agreed with the Brodzinski thoughts, and I do think that they were trying to ease him in. I don't expect him. I mean, again, Huskies are a team that's even again in years past, it's not like first line, second line, third line, fourth line are set in stone. There's a lot of movement within the lines, and their fourth line is better than average compared to the rest of the leagues. So just to say he's on the fourth line, I wouldn't. He's not going to be a fourth line player. Okay. So I do think the plan was for him to not get a ton of ice time. But yeah, the scoring touch clearly is still there. The thing that really impressed me or made me realize he has no ill effects of the injury is how physical he was playing. Throwing the weight around, a couple of nice body checks. He did not play timid at all, which is kind of the fear of major injury like this, is that they're going to be a little bit more wary going into the corners or going into some dangerous areas of the ice. Didn't see any of that, so that was the best thing for me. Is just the goals aside, those are always going to come. But not only is it, as you said, the tenacity is there. He looked like a fifth-year player playing against an inexperienced team. He just, I mean, the 2 goals that he scored were not stoppable, and yeah, it was a men versus boys kind of feel there for not just with him, but for much of that game after the first period. After they pulled Tomey, I don't know if that was at 6-1 or 7-1 or somewhere in there. Well, and then when St. Cloud seemed to, we had talked last week they didn't have a chance to play an exhibition game before this. This kind of turned into an exhibition game because they brought in Lamoureux about halfway through to finish it up for Herenak, which I think was smart. I mean, your game's out of hand at that point. I was even maybe thinking they could get Castor in for some action as well. But just was Lamoureux basically played half the game, the second half. And yeah, as you said, lots of players got points. Both games, I know we're still on Friday's game, but I liked that we were able to see all of the freshmen throughout the weekend. Guys like, I know Salquist played on Saturday, and then Lutke on Sunday. So I think Pert was maybe the only guy to play both days of the freshmen. So they're kind of cycling in their young guys and getting their feet wet. And I thought that the freshmen played pretty well. Pert had a couple of penalties in the weekend, but I thought I was impressed by his kind of defensive nature. He was a guy that you really, the first half of the Saturday game, you didn't really hear his name much, but that's sometimes a good thing for a defenseman. I don't think he's a Nishan like offense first defenseman. I don't think he's a guy that's just a stay at home guy. I think he's going to. I think on the broadcast they brought up Ryan Suter as a comparison, which I think is a good one. He's not a guy that's going to shy away from playing an offensive aspect of the game, but first and foremost, he's a rock at the blue line, and so he was making the plays that he needed to. Like I said, I think he took 3 penalties in the weekend. So getting acclimated to the college game, and let's hope we don't take 3 penalties a weekend going forward. But at the same time, that also says you're not scared of getting involved and playing aggressive as well. Just need to tamp that down and not play stupidly, which I'm not saying he was. So as far as the young guys go, I was probably most interested in seeing them. We kind of know what the upperclassmen can do, and guys like Brodzinski, which has the injury question marks. All of those question marks are pretty much erased this weekend, and then I hard to pick out negatives in a 12-2 game, 13-2 game, really. Letting that one go, but yep. And as we said, that first game was the boat race, and then Sunday was the more competitive contest, just 2-0 there. I bet there's going to be some people that will blame that on the fat ice in St. Cloud. That's another St. Thomas they couldn't handle the Olympic sheet, and maybe the NHL ice at the X was more to their liking, or at least just more to their experience. But yeah, 2-0 on Sunday. Obviously, the score much tighter. I still think the bulk of the action was dictated by St. Cloud. It's really only a few stretches in the game that St. Thomas had sustained pressure, and even then, 30 seconds at a time. There wasn't really a point in the game when I kind of felt, St. Thomas is turned the tide here. It seemed like it was always St. Cloud's game. They were always sort of in control, and they just didn't finish on a couple of opportunities. They had a couple of posts. I think Brodzinski had a pipe somewhere in there. So the score was probably closer than what the action would dictate. But
yeah, and only allowing 3 shots on goal in the first period, and then 6 during the second, where I thought St. Thomas probably only down 1-0 going into the second. That's probably where they were like, hey, we got a chance at this, and they came out firing. I thought early in the second. That's probably the best chance, or their best sustained pressure and whatnot. But then eventually, obviously, that time turned right to St. Cloud, and then Micah puts it up 2-0, and they were just kind of able to roll 4 lines and coast to the rest of the game.
Yeah, and you didn't go to that Sunday game, did you?
I did not. I paid for Flow Sports.
Yep. Same here.
Yeah, paid for the monthly. I was thinking about it, but again, I can't do anything spontaneous anymore, with the twins, like,
right.
And Clara and whatnot. So, packing everything up and then heading down there. it's not the life for me until, I don't know, they're all 18.
Sure. No, I was just curious as to, I think they said 3,000 or 4,000 showed up, and they brought the a student section there, parked behind one of the nets. I was just more curious to see like what the St. Thomas contingent versus St. Cloud contingent would have been whenever the Huskies scored. They were not quiet. So, and just the fact that it was their first game, home game in quotes, at the D1 level, it was just kind of curious. I'm sure that it kind of had a weird vibe there.
Yeah.
But all told, I think that went fairly well. Again, that's another one where I'm sure the Huskies, other than like guys on St. Thomas that would have played in like the state hockey tournament, I bet you more Huskies have played at the X than guys on St. Thomas. So it wasn't necessarily, I mean, it'll go in the books as a road game, but a place that St. Cloud and many of their players have played at and had success at. So I thought that worked out well for the Huskies.
Yeah, it was overall, your thoughts on, is it what you expected from the makeup of the team? Do you think they're a little ahead of where you thought they would be, a little behind after 1 week? Just Rennick, I thought, both games, he played extremely well. Lamoureux, when he came in, I thought he did also really well. Just kind of his poise, I was happy to see. I'm always nervous about the little leakers that can kind of go through Rennick, but he looked strong. He wasn't tested a ton, but any time that he was, I thought he was up for it, and any goal that he let in, I was like, oh, well, that's it. That nothing much he could have done there.
Yeah, the poise was there. Did you see him? He was trying to go for an empty net goal at the end.
Trying to go for an empty netter. I loved it.
Didn't he do that in the NCAAs last year too? Either the Boston College game or the BU. I don't know if BU pulled their goalie. Pretty sure the BC game he was trying to do that too. Which
I think so. I think I remember that.
I'm gonna go out on a limb and I'm gonna say he's gonna score a goal this year.
Whoa, okay, that's
he's trying for it. He's trying for it, and you can tell that he's been practicing it. And he's a fifth-year senior that he doesn't have a goal
yet. Like,
he doesn't have too many boxes that aren't checked at this point, and that's going to be one.
Most goals in SCSU history by a goalie.
Yeah, I wonder if there has been a goalie.
I don't think there.
Not necessarily. I haven't seen one. But you could have one of those ones where the goalie's the last guy to touch the puck and then the other team puts it in. There's been a couple of those over the years in the NHL. I'm not saying for St. Cloud. St. Cloud's been around for a while. I wouldn't be shocked if someone has had a goal. But yeah, certainly not in my time.
Bremsek?
Yeah, we could be going way back to the 30s.
Yep.
That's my hot prediction for the night.
I like it.
Sometime this season, he's gonna pop one in.
It's bold. It's bold. I like it.
But as far as just the general team, how I felt, I mean, it's tough. It's tough to really gauge much, just based on St. Thomas being, kind of not good. Obviously, we kind of figured that going into it, and so I think the two wins were expected. I'll have a lot better gauge on how I feel about this team, positive or negative, after this weekend when they're playing Mankato. But they did not disappoint me. Let's put it that way. And I did not see 12 goals either coming. I thought 6 or 7 or 8 or something would have been kind of greedy. So nice to see a double-digit goal total put on there, but I'll reserve my early season optimism or pessimism or whatever ism until this weekend.
Yeah, and what I was most happy to see, obviously, we talked about Brodzinski, but the big thing I like is the presence that, especially on the first game, that, Hinches, I thought he was, buzzing everywhere. And Fitzgerald. I mean,
Yeah.
those are, your two big leaders, and you're going to need them to step up. And I thought, in all honesty, those are two that kind of slid backwards at the end of last season. Those are the people who you need there. When I talked earlier in the podcast, last podcast, about how I feel like we didn't have a top scorer or like a game breaker, and that's supposed to be Henches and Fitzgerald with his, seniority, I'll say, or just downright oldness. But,
Yes.
he's, those are the people who you want to step up when the going's tough. And I thought, in the run, they really slid backwards. And, it was the Will Hammer, that was able to shine. Cockrell, was able to shine and whatnot. Yeah, they played all right, but they didn't show up on the score sheets nearly as much. Nolan Walker really kind of took that role and just ran with it at the end of last season. So I was happy to see, especially how Hinch played. I was really, really optimistic in seeing that. And, Okabe as well. I mean, if we can get him going, that's going to be great. Of the new one, that I liked Spalacy's intensity on Sunday's game. And I felt like he was a really good Will Hammer replacement and whatnot. And he was also 9 wins and 3 losses on the faceoff draw for the week, or for that game. So I mean, that's what you want out of your depth. So
Yeah, always important to get a good face-off guy. That Lutke impressed me on Sunday. That's the only game of the two that he played. But it seemed like he had the puck on his stick a fair amount of times, and I think that he can be someone that another good role depth guy that can kind of work into his own. I agree with Fitzgerald as well. Never really saw him as a playmaker per se. He was he felt very comfortable handling the puck and setting plays up. Like you said, the experience factor there is a big key of that. But he looked like a slightly different player. I've always liked him, but he's kind of felt like a more of a finisher rather than the setup guy. And he was a force, and that's going to be a big key. And just when you're rattling off these names, Okabe and Walker and Micah Miller, who always, like, once a game seems to have like a breakaway chance, or quasi breakaway, drawing a penalty or something like that. He's always he doesn't put up the numbers per se, but as far as the chances go, he's a threat to be reckoned with. It's just it goes to the depth of this team, that you can have a guy like Brodzinski play on the quote unquote fourth line, and that you're going to roll out 4 lines like that. 4 lines that you're not going to just trot out a line to give your guys a rest, and just a stopgap. The 4 lines are legit scoring threats, and even within that, you're mixing and matching. There's very, very, very little, or very uncommon over the last few years to have three guys on a line that are always there all season. It's constant shuffling, and it goes to the chemistry of the team that you can sort of mix and match a lot of different line combinations, and that keeps the other team on their heels too. It's tough for them to defend. So like I said, it's tough to take too much away from this series. It's just based on the opponent, but it couldn't have gone any better, I don't think. And I think getting that confidence to go into Mankato this weekend is going to be very important.
Yeah, let's get into that. It's speaking of weekends that couldn't have gone much better. Minnesota State going to UMass, spoiling their banner raising, getting the sweep, and really how they were able to get that sweep too is, kind of noteworthy in my mind. First off, 2-0 win, where Dryden McKay just pitches a shutout. Mankato scores. Mankato draws a penalty and scores within the first minute of the game. And then even after that, UMass only had one shot on goal that whole first period. And then just UMass wasn't able to be let off the mat. They must have got a tongue lashing or whatnot over their, after that game, going into the next one, they come out firing. They've got a 3-0 lead. Nothing's going wrong at all for Mankato, or nothing's going wrong for UMass, and then all of a sudden, Mankato just unleashes an onslaught there in the third period. Scores 5 goals in the third, and they scored another one late in the second to make it 6 straight goals.
It was 3-0 with like a minute to go in the second. I mean, they didn't score their first goal until late in the second, and then, like you said, poured it on in the third.
Yeah, and in the third, it was like a 9-minute stretch where 5 goals, went in, and that's just you got that, and you got a strong goaltender there with obviously I would say the favorite to win the Richter, Dryden McKay. He'll probably get a lot more clout now that there's non-conference games, to where he probably was held back by that last year because it was quote unquote just the WCHA. But I'm incredibly excited for this series. I'm a little bummed that it's happening, week 2 versus January. But we're gonna have a healthy lineup for both sides, and it's gonna be a slugfest. So I'm looking forward to it. What are you looking out for the most part?
I agree too. I think this is going to be a barn burner series. Should say too, I mean, UMass, they lost a couple of guys at Lindbergh, their goalie, and a couple of their forwards left, but that's largely the same team. I mean, that Murray was in net for them, who was the goalie in their first, the Duluth game, the Frozen Four, and so he started, I think, the year before Lindbergh got there. And so it's not like this was a totally different UMass team. I mean, yeah, they were rated number 1, probably largely ceremoniously, just because they were the national champion last year. It seems to be the tradition. Rank them number 1 the next year. They might not be the number 1 team this year necessarily, but they're still a damn good team, and 2 road wins there. On a banner raising occasion. I'm sure the atmosphere, fans back in the building, I'm sure the atmosphere was off the charts. So don't I know you're not, but yeah, don't. I was very impressed to see that result for Mankato. I think that a split would have been. I saw the 3-0 score on Saturday. Mm-hmm. I'm thinking, well, you got a split. It's pretty good. If St. Cloud gets a split this weekend, I think that'd be I'd be fine with that.
Yeah.
And so for them to go into UMass and win,
way to go, Craig Dahl. Hope for a split on the road.
Well, road splits against good teams. I don't think your beggars can't be choosers. I think
that's true.
You don't want to get swept. And Mankato's a tough place to play. St. Cloud has. I've been at a series in Mankato where the Huskies have been swept. So, and expect the atmosphere there to be pretty good too. Coming on, this is Mankato team coming off their first ever, not just Frozen Four, but NCAA wins. And they played St. Cloud great in the Frozen Four. It's kind of like some unfinished business going on there. I thought that for not I would say maybe 60% of that game, I thought Mankato outplayed the Huskies. It wasn't a dominating performance for either side, but especially in that second period, it looked like the Mavericks were taking control of that game, and it was a credit to the Huskies that they were able to dig deep and and win that game at the end, kind of a buzzer beater type last minute goal. Nolan Walker, right? I think so.
Yep.
It was a tip from the point.
The tip, which has been flooding my Twitter, is any mention of that game. It's been that GIF from the down the line camera angle where it's just absolutely gorgeous. That tip. So shout out to the cameraman, whoever did that one. So
yeah, so Huskies know how tough a game to expect. Obviously, with most of the teams still intact from the run last year, this should be a great series. And McKay, as you said, he's had a great career. Huskies seem to have handled him fairly well. I mean, they don't play every year now. They're not in the same conference, but I believe he was the goalie for Okabe's 4-goal outburst a couple years ago. I think they chased McKay. It was like a 7-2 game or something like that. And then you had the Frozen Four last year, where the Huskies scored 5 goals on McKay. So they've had a you look at the guy's numbers, and he's always 1.7 something goals against. Just the best save percentage in the country and all that. Huskies, in the limited time that they have seen him, seem to have found something to get the puck past him. But I wouldn't be surprised if you see him, throw a shutout one of these games. It's going to be a tough series. Looking forward to seeing kind of the physicality here. I think that's always been sort of Mankato's advantage when they play the Huskies, is they seem to be more of a physical team. Just in the style of play is a little more hard-nosed, whereas St. Cloud has typically been more skillsy. I think this year, just based on the small sample that we've seen, I've seen a little more grit from the Huskies. So I think that they can maybe close that physicality gap with Mankato. And I still think they have maybe a slight skill advantage or speed advantage, let's say, up front. So it's going to be interesting to see where the who's gonna which team or which unit of which team is gonna bend the most in the series. It's there's gonna be or it could go down to the goaltending. I think the matchup is so close between these two teams that it's going to be really those details is where the teams are going to win, live and die. What are you thinking? I'm copping out and I'm going split, but I'm just hoping for 2 entertaining games, and I think we're going to get them. But what's your thoughts going into the series?
Yeah, you're right on McKay being the goalie for that game down. That was at the Mariucci Classic. And so, yeah, Okabe scored the first 3, then Brodzinski scored. Mankato scored, and then Okabe scored his 4th. And then it was 5. So it was 5-1. McKay let in 5 goals on 9 shots, and then he was pulled.
And that would be and then the Frozen Four. Those are the last 2 games that the Huskies and Mavericks have played. They haven't played a non-conference series in that time, I believe. I don't think so. So I think those are the only 2 games that McKay has played against the Huskies.
Yeah, I believe so. I remember.
Or was he on the?
When was Hockey Day Minnesota?
That would have been 18. January of 18.
Oh, that's right, because Clara was very young. That's right. So I don't think
he might have been on that team. I'm not sure. I don't think he was. I think he came in 19. But
nope, he was not on that team. That was Connor Lecouvi.
Okay. So yeah, it seems like those would be the only 2 games that that these 2 teams have played in the last since Larson's taken over. Let's say.
God, that 17-18 team for Mankato also was just a juggernaut. 29-10-1, but they lost like the last 3. They lost to Michigan Tech in the WCHA 3-game playoff. Then they had a week off. Then they lost to Minnesota Duluth 3-2 in overtime. In Sioux Falls.
Oh, that's right.
So this has been your Minnesota State history lesson there. Yeah, I'm going to be really excited to kind of see how the depth of both teams are going to match up against each other. Obviously we can talk about, our top players, and, how they're going to match up, against, the best that Mankato, has to offer. And of course, right now I'm just stalling because I thought I had everything set up and I don't. There it is. Okay. So, I mean, like, Nate Smith and whatnot. I mean, he had just a fantastic weekend with, 6 points, against the defending title. And,
he was their best player, I thought, last year too.
Yeah, exactly. Livingstone, Fury. So it's going to be, I think matching up against the Brodzinski, Henches, Bietnik, Krenilla, all that's going to, maybe play out as a wash. But I'm going to be looking at our role players and our depth to see, that's what we built last season on was our ability to always kind of wear down opponents, grind them down, not nearly as flashy as years past, but play solid team-based hockey and was able to get that. And, I think Minnesota is going to try to do the same thing. Like you said, they're probably going to be a little bit more physical, how we react to that. And I think if we get to McKay early enough, I think we're going to, be on the right track to secure the victory. But Mankato, obviously, they can come back. So it's, you're not going out on a limb at all for a split, and I would be hard-pressed to go any other way with it either. So that's probably, where I see it heading as well. But, first and foremost, I think it's just going to be entertaining. It's just going to be a slugfest. So I'm excited for it. The last game that I saw in Mankato, I believe was back in 2007. Was a second leg of a home and home.
Is that when they coughed up the 3-0 lead late?
That is not.
That would have been right around that time. But yeah, in that era, they played some.
Well,
crazy games against Mankato in like late 2000s.
Yeah, that game. Yeah, it was 4-1. Huskies were up 4-1.
I thought it was 3-0, and the guy was Mick Berge, who I think scored 3 goals, and then somebody else scored a fourth. It was like 9 minutes to go in the third period, and Mankato came back and won that game. But it would have been in that 07-08 era, so maybe not the one that you're thinking of. I remember in that time there was like a scoreless tie.
That's the last game I went to. Yep.
Okay.
That was the last game I went to, was the scoreless tie. And Gepfert and Zacharias battled to a 0-0. Gepfert made 2 saves in the first period, and we were just not able to do anything with it. So that was the last game, and ever since I had a lot of fun in downtown, Mankato, with that arena right downtown. It can be a fun time.
I've only been down there for one Husky series, and then I did go to a random Mankato Anchorage game. I was down there for an old job. It was like I think it was the year that Mankato was number 1 overall. So would that been like 14 or 15? And they spanked Anchorage pretty well. Sure. But yeah, a nice arena in a fun spot. And like I said, the two schools have a history. Mm-hmm. Just kind of thinking now about even in the first couple of years of the new conference alignment, they were playing home and homes or at least a non-conference series. I thought pretty much every year up until we haven't. I think the last series they had was the one I went to, which would have been 16-17. Because he just had the one off at Hockey Day,
Mm-hmm.
and then the one off at the Mariucci Classic, and then last year in the Frozen Four. I feel like I'm missing something in there, but I don't think so. I think that's been it. And so it's nice to restoke the rivalry. I hope that this is not a home and home. It's a 2 down in Mankato. I hope that means that we're going to get Mankato up to St. Cloud.
I would
for
imagine
a series.
it does. Yeah.
Yeah. Or get those home and homes back on it. Those are always fun.
Mm-hmm.
You have a home and home this year with Bemidji, but not Mankato.
God, that's a terrible drive too.
Yeah,
like I forget every once in a while on how far north Bemidji is. I mean, obviously it's not like Grand Forks or anything, but it's like at least Grand Forks is easy to get to.
Yeah, but Bemidji, I have never been to Bemidji. I am ex-Travelin fan, but I have to admit I never made it up to Bemidji.
I've never made it up to Bemidji for a hockey game, but I've been up there before.
I don't think I've ever been there, period. Maybe as like a kid we went to the Babe the Blue Ox thing or something, but I don't remember it. So, yeah, and this year, if anyone is interested, it's New Year's weekend. So, right in sunny Bemidji in January 1st.
Enjoy.
I think they have the first game up there. So, yeah. December 31st.
So, so the game before the great 0-0 tie. Yeah. Huskies got goals from Michael Olson, Casey Bohr, Andrew Gordon, and Aaron Brocklehorst, as Doug Woog used to always say. So yeah, they were up
Mazzacco too, not Hurst. It's Horst.
Horst. So it was 4-1 with about 4 minutes into the third period. Hartman takes a penalty. Berge scores. Hansen scores. Jared Stewart scored. Then Travis Morin scored the game-winning goal, and then added an empty netter there at the end. And that
was at St. Cloud.
That was at St. Cloud. Yep. And Hansen scored at 11:27. Stewart at 15:42, and then the game winner was Morin at 16:47. That dropped St. Cloud to 14-4-3.
Yeah, and I remember that being a tough weekend because that might have been, what would that have been, like February?
January 12th and 13th.
Maybe it wasn't. I thought that it was like right on the heels because that year, which was Motzko's, was this 07 or which year was this?
06-07.
Okay, so this would have been Motzko's second year. No, so I'm thinking the year before that they went up to North Dakota and swept them. But I'm thinking that in that time period, like the early Motzko years, St. Cloud really struggled with Mankato, which was odd because I think under Dahl, I think St. Cloud won the first dozen games or something against Mankato. They dominated them up until, like I said, around this era, where then it seemed like even with St. Cloud being a better team, it seemed like it was always tough to get wins out of Mankato, and there would be like these choke jobs like that. There was a playoff series they played against them where Mankato won the first game on like they tied the game up with like one of those 0.1 seconds to go kind of goals, and then St. Cloud ended up winning in 3 games. That was a good series. Yeah, there's always been generally good, entertaining series against these two teams, and as we were saying, expect that to remain the same here this weekend.
As long as it's not a 0-0 tie.
Yeah, that's I don't think there's going to be a 0-0 tie.
Okay, that was 09-010, I believe. 09-010. Who am I? Wow.
It works. That was the playoff series?
Yep, that was, Jeff Irwin scored at the 1959 mark. Extra attacker. Then Cale Mullerat scored the game winner 20 seconds into overtime.
Dan Dunn was the goalie for the Huskies, I believe. And I remember not, I think he did not. If I can remember, I think that he had a chance he could have like shot the puck into the corner, and he ended up covering the puck to give him a face-off, because it was right off a draw is when they scored that last second goal. But if he would have just flung it into the corner, the clock would have ran out. So I remember being very angry at Dan Dunn.
I am absolutely amazed that you're able to remember stuff like that. Like I always stumble on dates. I always stumble on, or at least years. And I mean, for God's sake, I called it 010. And just these little minute details, they stick out in your mind. And yeah, you're right. Dan Dunn was the goalie. Mike Lee played the next night, won 3-2, and then in overtime, Drew LeBlanc scored to send us to the XL.
That was in Game 3, which I remember when I came into the building that day. I always came in on the backside of the Herb, which wasn't technically the Herb back then.
Which wasn't the Herb at that time.
But close to the practice rink. And so that I'm walking into the building that day, and outside the building, smoking a heater, drinking a cup of coffee, opening the door for fans, Mankato coach Troy Judding. And so I do remember that. He's a very nice guy. He was not happy that game because the LeBlanc winner, I think there was like an offside controversy. He like stormed off the rink. But it was good. That was that was 2010. That was the first year that the Huskies that was when the Huskies broke their NCAA jinx.
Yep.
And so
I remember, I also know that. Go on YouTube. I know that goal is somewhere on YouTube because I remember seeing that because
the LeBlanc
it's LeBlanc from Lash and Rowe, and I'm like, geez, that's a powerhouse right there.
I'll have to check it out because again, I think it was offsides. There was some sort of thing that Judding lost his shit, and that was the end of their season. But yeah, good times with these two teams, and kind of got the Minskew, the beer bowl, kind of booze bowl. I don't know how rich of a tradition that is anymore, but back in our day it was. So it was, it's some good memories, and let's hope that Huskies, at least take one of these. And yeah. As far as this non-conference schedule, plus the fact that, the NCHC is the gauntlet as it is.
Yeah.
The non-conference for Mankato might be more important for them. I mean, I think that the CCHA is an improvement from the WCHA just from the fact that you cut out the lowest part of the conference generally. Not to say anything poorly about Huntsville or Anchorage or Fairbanks, but generally they were not top division teams. So, and you're getting St. Thomas in there, and they're not going to boost anyone's pairwise beating them necessarily. But I think that it's a stronger division just by the fact that it's a smaller division or conference and not as bottom heavy as it was before. Mm-hmm. But still, it's not going to be a conference like the NCHC. So, I think for teams like Mankato and Bemidji and the contenders in that league, the non-conference is really where you can boost that pairwise up. And like we mentioned last week, pretty much all the Minnesota schools are playing tough non-conference. I think the Gophers are playing the worst of the non-conference schedules. Yeah. But Duluth and Bemidji and Mankato, they're all kind of playing each other. I think Duluth and Bemidji are going at it this weekend. And St. Cloud, obviously, as mentioned, they have Bemidji on the schedule, and so playing a lot of the other in-state schools. But then, like you said, Mankato going out to UMass. I know Duluth has got the Icebreaker coming up. They're hosting it, I believe. That's Michigan's there. Providence is there. Mankato, I believe, is the fourth up there. So Mankato's going to play some of those teams. I think they got Providence right off the bat in that. That's next weekend. Talk about an early season gauntlet for Mankato. So, yeah, the non-conference is the opportunity for Mankato to really prove themselves on a national scale. That's kind of the thing, and I'm guilty of it myself. Looking at the WCHA, and it's not the top competition, and so yeah, going into that Frozen Four game last year, I'm like, wow, we can handle Mankato. And like I said, I think that Mankato outplayed the Huskies for the majority of that game.
Yeah, they did.
And so they're getting to the point where they've proven themselves as a program, and sweeping UMass on the road only increases that even more. So be a tough test.
Yep, exactly. So quick Twitter questions. We did this last time, last iteration of the podcast. So here we go. First and foremost, this team very early stages. Compared to the last few seasons, went over that a little bit. But I'm excited to see how this team evolves. And like I said, if we can get just a little more game breaking consistency out of, either Fitzgerald, Henches, or whatnot, I think that's going to be kind of the main key there. But it's, more of the same with last year, and, looking forward to that, because obviously last year did us pretty well. So, obviously, Go Huskies Woo just replied with Jeff Finger, which, greatest Husky hockey player of all time. Mount Rushmore, 4 Jeff Fingers. Boom. Put it up there. Mount Rushmore of St. Cloud State hockey.
4 fingers of Jeff.
Right? If that isn't a poem by Emily Dickinson, I don't know what is.
Yeah, it was Walt Whitman.
Oh, it was Whitman. That's right, Whitman,
yeah.
Because it was you're right. Second game. Do you think it was the Huskies backing off or St. Thomas playing better? Which do you think was the case?
I'd say St. Thomas played a little bit better.
Staying out of the box. That was what, 7 power play goals?
7 out of 10 on Saturday. Yeah.
So it's, just staying out of the box, 5-on-5. They were, obviously you could tell that they couldn't keep up, and it was never really in doubt. But there were, again, with their penalty kill and just being so passive about it, and we were able to just run wild on it on Saturday. Sunday, they were able to stay out of the box. You didn't get those backdoor plays, and it was just a little bit more disciplined, I would say, by St. Thomas. So yeah, they probably played better that day. Huskies probably did downshift a little bit, but I don't think you're going to hear any of the coaching staff or players admit that.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah, and second game of a back-to-back, too. You're not going to be as fresh. And obviously, that goes for both teams. But in this case, I think that would have given St. Thomas a slight advantage. I think the smaller sheet, too, works to their advantage. It's not, you don't have to do as much skating, and St. Cloud can't expose their skill or speed advantage as much on the smaller sheet. So, again, the game should have been 4-5-0. I think. Like I said, the Huskies had a couple of pipes and really controlled play throughout 58 of the 60 minutes, I'd say. So, yeah, we don't need my brother said, boy, they really ran the score up on St. Thomas. And I'm like, dude, yeah, it's tough, too, because, St. Thomas is such humble university and a bunch of salt of the earth folks. It's really a shame.
It's really tough.
That they're the little brother.
You feel bad for them. Mind. They're pulling up by their bootstraps, and
yep.
we just the big bad St. Cloud State powerful one. You just feel for those 1%ers. I tell you that much.
Yeah, I don't have a ton of sympathy for that, but yeah, Yeah, I'm looking not looking too much into 2-0 as some sort of letdown.
Yeah. So it's gonna be a great weekend here. We'll catch it on Flow Sports. Not gonna be able to head down to the not Midwest Wireless Center anymore. That was my cell phone carrier back in my stomping ground, Midwest Wireless.
Wonder what it is now. I think it was.
It turned into Verizon.
And then I think it was Alltel at some point too.
Mm-hmm.
They've kind of shuffled through all the wireless,
all of the mobile carriers. Yeah. So, and then our good buddy Dan Jacobson. How excited am I for Metroid Dread? And I will say that I am so incredibly excited. First new Metroid game in like 17, 18 years. All new. Continuing that story. And it's been just, it'll be good to have that back. That comes out on Friday. So I'll be picking that up and probably picking up my Switch during intermissions and playing Metroid. So I'm excited.
There you go.
If there's any Nintendo franchise I think that could do a movie, I think Metroid could do it. I mean, it's basically Alien. So, I mean, you could do it. I think it'd be really good. So, there's always some rumors flying around. Oh yeah, blah 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 is attached to it. For a while, it was the director of Mission Impossible. He's gonna do a Metroid movie and whatnot. So, but maybe one of these days.
One can dream.
Yep, exactly. So, yep. Well, that does it for the podcast here. We'll be here next week talking about the inevitable split that's probably going to happen, but hopefully it's a Husky sweep.
There we go.
Any closing thoughts?
Closing thoughts. Was this Jerry Springer?
This is my final thought. Be good. Take care of yourselves and each other.
Yeah.
That's always a good final thought. So.
That is a good. I can't do any better than that.
You can't do it than the great Jerry Springer, So, perfect. Well, thanks for listening, and we will see you next week. Until then, go Huskies. Woo! Woo!